All right, I got everything back up running.
Okay.
Okay, let's continue. All right, so we lost internet again. We're going to go ahead and move on. We were just finishing up with Detroit Red Wings, and we're going to move on to the Florida Panthers. Last season, they ended up 35, 36, and 11 with a total of 81 points. That was a disappointing season for them because they expected to make the playoffs last year after doing very well the year before. But they didn't. They had a lot of injury issues and so on and so forth. Players leaving: Jaromir Jagr, Jonathan Marchessault, Riley Smith, Michael Scarbosa. And players coming in: Henrik Haupala, Connor Brickley, Michael Haley, Evgeny Dadonov, Radim Verbata, Alexander Grenier, and goaltender Harry Sateri. So, again, this is another team that is probably in a bit of a rebuilding mode, in transition, whatever you want to call it. But I don't know what to call this team because this is a team that could come out. They have enough pieces in place where they could make a serious run at a playoff spot, but at the same time they could have a year like 2015-16 where they finish with 103 points. They could come out and do 81 like last year. I just don't know. This is probably one of the few teams in the league that I really don't know what this team is going to do. They did have a lot of injuries last year, which contributed to their problems. But I mean, some of the pieces they have: Jonathan Huberdeau, Alexander Barkov, Vincent Trocheck, Jared McCann, Nick Bukestad. Back on defense: Aaron Ekblad, Keith Yandel, Jason Demers, Mark Pizik, Michael Matheson. I mean, they've got some nice pieces there. Back in net: Roberto Luongo. Yes, he's aging, but he's still a pretty good goalie to have. James Reimer backing him up. This is one of those teams that they're either going to do well or they're not. I mean, I don't know. What's your take on this team?
Well, here's the way, and you're right. This is one team where they may come full circle and bounce back to the team they were 2 years ago. But I just didn't understand why they got rid of Gerard Gallant. It worked out well for Gerard Gallant. He's the coach of the Las Vegas Golden Knights now. But that just didn't make sense to me. They weren't that far out of being in first or a playoff position, and I guess they had much higher expectations, but they weren't out of it. It's not like when they fired Gerard Gallant, they weren't the worst team in the Eastern Conference or even the Atlantic Division. They were far from it. They were mediocre, but they weren't terrible.
Yeah.
And here they go firing Gerard Gallant, and they changed the whole thing. I think that front office move was a bonehead move, and it cost them. And they have great talent on this team. They really do. I just think that their attitude in the front office, I'm talking about ownership and, the top brass, has to be in tune with the players on the ice. And if it's not, they're going to sputter again. I think that's where the problem is with this team. But I could be wrong. And so unless if that's settled and the team moves well through a new coach, a brand new coach.
Yep.
Then he's got to install his system, and the team's got to, are they going to hit the ground running right off the bat? Most of the time, the answer is no, but maybe they will. So
yeah, if they can
see them.
Yeah, if they can stay within striking distance here into, say, late November, early December, if they're still within striking distance and they haven't fallen too far behind, they're going to be a dangerous team for sure.
Yep. That's a very good point.
But I think October and November is going to decide their season for them.
Yep. I mean, I could see them finishing as high as third or on the list, but any more than that, I just don't see them overtaking the top two teams I got picked. So we'll talk about them in a few minutes.
All right. Next team I've got is Montreal. Speaking of next teams, they finished last year 47, 26, and 9 for 103 points, easily making the playoffs. As far as players coming and going, they had players leaving. They had Alex Radulov, Andrei Markov, Nathan Bolio, Alexei Yamelin, Mikhail Sergachev, Brian Flynn, Nikita Nesterov, Steve Ott.
Yep.
Players coming in, they've replaced him with Jonathan Drouin, Alice Hemsky, Peter Holland, Carl Alsner, David Schlemko, Mark Streit, Jakub Jerepek, and Joe Morrow. Biggest name, obviously, as far as the new faces are concerned, is Jonathan Drouin. They got him with a trade with Tampa Bay. And basically, if you look at the Montreal Canadiens website, it's all Jonathan Drouin all the time website. And I knew that was going to happen because Drouin is Quebec native and he's French speaking, and they love nothing more than that up there in Montreal. So, Montreal, they love their French speaking players and coaches. So Drouin is going to be the new darling up there. But as far as the players coming in, Alsner is a nice piece to add. Holland, Hemsky. But I don't think it's enough to replace what they lost. I mean, Radulov is a big loss. Yep. Markov is big. Bolio, Emelin. I mean, the hits they took back on defense.
Yep.
It's almost like Montreal say, well, we don't need great defensemen. We got Carey Price, so we don't need to worry about it.
Right. Yeah.
He'll keep the puck out of the net. But at the same time, I don't think Montreal has enough depth up front. I think they're going to struggle to score goals this year. I really do.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I'm pretty confident saying that they're not going to be a 100+ point team this year. They're just not. I think they'll probably be close to making the playoffs, but I'm not sure if they're going to be good enough to make the playoffs.
Yeah, they're going to be middle of the pack team. I agree, and they'll struggle mightily to get in fourth place. I've got them picked fourth, but I could see them finishing fifth if Ottawa plays well, or even falling to as low as sixth. But they're definitely not the sitting here right now as I'm talking, unless something unforeseen happens. They're not the one of the premier teams in the Atlantic Division, as they really were last year.
Yep. I mean, Carey Price is going to win them a lot of games. Don't get me wrong, but he's not going to win them. He's not going to win them 45 games. He'd have to stand on his head every single night. There's no margin of error for him anymore at this point. So he's got that big, nice, long contract though. So he'll get paid.
He'll be getting a lot of poutine after the game.
Yeah. So I'm not sure that this team. I mean, definitely in the Metro, they've got no shot if this team is in the Metro. Being that they're in the Atlantic's a little weaker than the Metro. Montreal still has a pretty good shot at making the playoffs.
Yeah,
but it'll be on the back of Carey Price at this point. I just see Montreal winning a lot of 2-1 games.
Right, I agree.
That's the kind of games that they're going to play.
I agree.
So, and their preseason really is, obviously you don't take a lot of stock in the preseason, but I don't think they've won a game yet in the preseason.
Oh, I hadn't checked that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're 0-6.
Whoa.
So.
Yeah, it's not good. Yeah, they could sputter completely, couldn't they?
So it doesn't bode well for their prospect pool either. Speaking of which, as far as prospects that are expected to make the team this year, Hockey News doesn't have any. They've got a few guys that are going to make the team next year. Noah Yulson, defenseman, Nikita Sherbak, right winger, Charles Hudon, left winger. All expected to make the team next year, but they don't have a deep prospect pool to pull from.
Right.
Certainly not this year anyway. So, I don't know. If I were a Montreal fan, I would not be too excited about this team. We'll put it that way.
They've got to defend in front of Carey Price.
Yeah, it's nice.
And I don't see it. I don't see that they're going to do that. I think they're going to say, well, Carey, stop the puck. Oh, stop the puck. And if they don't defend in front of him, they're not going to make the playoffs. So,
yeah, and Jonathan Drouin can't score all their goals for them. So.
Yeah. Galchenyuk.
Yeah, they still have Pacioretty, Galchenyuk. They've got, the core that was there. A lot of players we haven't mentioned, but are still there. Brendan Gallagher, yeah. I just don't. I don't think it's enough because Plekanec had a down year last year. Galchenyuk didn't do too well last year. Pacioretty, I mean, all those core guys had down years compared to previous seasons, those guys got to come back.
Yeah,
to say the least.
They do.
And then you add Jonathan Drouin to that. So, and if they do, they'll be great. They'll be a good team. If all those guys come back to the previous seasons that they had. So, I don't know. I'd be nervous if I were a Montreal fan. We'll leave it at that. All right, let's move on to Ottawa before we lose our connection again. Last year, they finished 44, 28, and 10 with 98 points. Made the playoffs, of course, last year. Went all the way to the Eastern Conference Final last year on the back of Mr. Carlson. As far as departures, they lost Mark Mathot and Tommy Wingles. Tommy Wingles, yep. Left winger. As far as players that they added, they brought in Nate Thompson. They brought in Johnny Oduya. I think that's an upgrade, Oduya over Mark Mathot. Although, I don't know. That might be a wash.
Yeah,
Mathot is a real good stay-at-home guy.
Yeah, he's a tough guy, too.
Yeah. Oduya is a little bit... I don't know. Ottawa's a good team. I think they're still going to be strong this year. A lot is going to depend. We talked about it when we were talking about the Erik Karlsson injury. A lot's going to depend on how they do in October, or at least until Eriksson comes back. Karlsson, not Eriksson. Karlsson. When Karlsson comes back, however they are in the standings when he comes back, will largely determine how Ottawa does this year.
Yeah.
If he's out till December, Ottawa's in trouble.
Yeah.
If he comes back 2 weeks into October, they'll be fine. They'll make the playoffs. No problem.
Yeah.
As far as young players coming in, they've got Thomas Chabot, a defenseman, Colin White, a center, that are both expected to make the team this year. And everybody else on their prospect list is expected to make the team in future years. So, but the key to this team, again, the Karlsson situation, they'll have Hoffman back again this year. He had a good year coming back from that long injury outage that he had the year before. All the key players are still there. Kyle Turris, Mark Stone, Brassard, Pajot.
Yeah. What a playoffs he had. Jean-Gabriel Pajot.
Yeah, Dion Phaneuf is still there. Cody Ceci is still there. I mean, this is a good, strong team.
Yeah. They have good. They're not. I read this in the Hockey News and it stuck with me. They're not going to surprise anybody this year.
That's true.
Last year, they surprised a lot of people. They were like, God, well, Ottawa, what? I mean, they surprised the hell out of me in the playoffs that they beat us. That's not going to happen this year. They're not going to be taken for granted by probably anyone. And so you got to look at the other teams in the Atlantic. Will other teams step up ahead of them? And my answer to that is a definite yes. I mean, we're going to talk about Tampa Bay and Toronto. I think you're going to see Boston step up. And will Ottawa, stay where they are in the middle of the pack, or are they going to keep up with that? And I don't know.
Well, that defensive style that they play, the question is, can the teams that are playing against them, particularly the ones inside the division that play them most, can they come up with a way to beat that that
Yeah.
trap that they use.
Yep.
And if they can figure out a way to beat that trap, Ottawa can be exposed as a, overall as a team.
Right.
Last year they rode a lot on the emotion of Craig Anderson and his family situation, but that has seemed to settle down because his wife has now been diagnosed as cancer-free, so things will settle down in his life, at least for now. You've got all, that emotion that they won't be able to ride that wave so much
Right.
that they had last year. Like it's all dependent on, Carlson coming back. Can teams figure out that trap and find a way to beat it if they can? There's going to be you're going to see a lot of the teams in the Atlantic watching video on how the Pittsburgh Penguins managed to beat it. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
And if teams have the talent to be able to do what Pittsburgh did to them, then you may see that happen.
Yep.
Because, of course, Pittsburgh is a very talented team, too. So, all right, let's move on to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Last year, they finished 42-30-10, total of 94 points. They started off last year dismally because of all the injuries they had, and then got real hot after the All-Star break and almost made the playoffs.
Yeah.
As far as players coming in and going, they lost Jonathan Drouin via trade, and Jason Garrison, defenseman, is also gone. But they gained Chris Kunitz. They got him off of Pittsburgh. Dan Girardi, Mikhail Sergachev, and Jamie McBain. And they also brought in Michael Layton to be the third-string goalie or first-string American League goalie, whatever you want to call it. And really, if you want to talk about additions, you really should also consider Steven Stamkos as an addition to this team, because what did he play? How many games did he play last year? I'm trying to look it up. There's very few.
Yeah, he did. He wasn't very far in the season at all. I don't have it here in front of me yet.
17 games. They lost him after 17 games last year, and he missed the rest of the season.
Yeah.
And had they had him last year, this would have been a playoff team for sure.
Oh, no question. No question.
And I think with Stamkos coming back, that alone is enough to put this team back into the playoffs, because he is that good. And yes, they did lose Jonathan Drouin, who kind of had a very enigmatic time in Tampa Bay. He had that period where they sent him down to the minor leagues, and then he refused to report there and refused to play, and he's just being a very difficult person with Tampa Bay. But he was also a very highly touted prospect coming out. He was drafted in, I don't think he was first overall, but he was definitely in the top 5 in the draft pick. So Jonathan Drouin was projected to be a very, very good player for Tampa Bay, and everybody was waiting for him to develop and become a very powerful forward on that Tampa Bay offense. But obviously he wasn't happy in Tampa Bay, and they managed to get him off to Montreal. So, but the players that are still there are still very good. You've got Palat, you've got Stamkos, Kucherov, who developed into a very thing that bothered me most with Kucherov is he did that thing where he'd set up, at the top of the circle on the power play. How many goals did he score last year on a one-timer from that exact spot? And I kept yelling at the TV. I'm like, where the guy is going to be. Why don't you have somebody there to stop him from doing? How many goals did he score last year on one-timers from that one spot?
Yeah, he did.
I mean, and he's a huge, huge offensive force for that team. So this year, when he's playing with Stamkos, it's going to make him that much more dangerous. They still have Killorn. They've got Tyler Johnson. They've got Ryan Callahan. I mean, this is Nemestikov. I mean, this is a good, strong team. And then back on defense, they've got a Norris Trophy candidate in Victor Hedman. Anton Strawman's very good. Braden Coburn, Dan Girardi, Sergachev. I mean, this team is loaded top to bottom. Back in net, Andrei Vasilevsky. is the clear number one there, and he was him and Ben Bishop split time last year. Bishop's now gone. This is Vasilevsky's net, and I guarantee you he's not going to disappoint. He was very highly touted. I mean, this Tampa Bay, I think, is probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest team, top to bottom in the division.
I agree.
As far as prospects, we mentioned Sergachev is supposed to make the team this year. Slater Koch is defense. He's expected to make the team this year. As for everybody else, they're years out. So that's your prospect update for Tampa Bay. But I don't think they need a lot of prospects this year. This team's already loaded. And as long as they can stay healthy, I think this team will easily make the playoffs.
I think they will. If they're a healthy team, I think they'll make the playoffs. And Wayne, I would pick them to go to the Eastern Conference Finals. They're that good. They could, as a healthy team, they could easily make the Eastern Conference Finals. Beyond that, it's a crapshoot. You never know what's going to happen. But they're my odds-on favorite to be the Atlantic Division's representative there.
Fair enough. Okay. All right, next team, Toronto Maple Leafs, finish 40, 27, and 15 for a total of 95 points. Barely made the playoffs. They got in with that number 8 spot, ended up playing Washington in the first round, and took them to 6 games, which surprised a lot of people. A lot of people thought they'd be 4 and out. But as far as players coming in and going, they lost Brian Boyle. They lost Matt Hunwick and Brendan Leipzig. And they brought in Patrick Marleau, Dominic Moore, Ron Hainsey, Callie Rosen, and Andreas Borgman. I think bringing in Patrick Marleau to bring them some playoff experience. Dominic Moore, of course, is a longtime veteran. Ron Hainsey, who just won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Smart move by Toronto to mix in veterans like this to go with the young kids that they have in Austin Matthews, William Nylander, JVR, who, he's a veteran now, but he doesn't have a whole lot of playoff experience. Nazem Kadri, same thing. Mitch Marner, another young up-and-coming prospect.
Yep.
Leo Komarov, Tyler Bozak, Connor Brown, Kasperi Kapanen, Zach Hyman. I mean, they've got some good forwards up front.
They are a very young team.
Yep.
And they're fast.
Young but very talented.
Very talented.
Reminds me of the Edmonton Oilers.
Yep. I've got them finished second.
Yep.
What I see is I think that, again, I'm going to tout the Hockey News on a point that I agree with. You take this team, Wayne, okay, and you contrast them with Florida in terms of their front office. And the Hockey News said, and I agree with it, they're probably, if not the best front office in the NHL, they're one of them. It is definitely Brendan Shanahan's team, but he's got the right type of people in there making decisions. And of course, at Mike Babcock, why he hasn't won the Jack Adams yet, I don't know, but they got the right type of people in there to set themselves up for a playoff run.
Yep.
And that's to me this not just the players, Austin Matthews, et cetera, but they have a great front office.
Yeah, you've got, and you can't discount Lou Lamoriello, what he can bring to the team.
Lamoriello, there you go.
He's a legend. He'll be in the Hall of Fame if he isn't already. But that front office is top notch. They've got great young forwards. Defense is decent, but not great. I mean, they've got Morgan Riley, Marinson, Jake Gardner, Marchenko, Zaitsev, Bergman. Goaltending, they've got Freddie Anderson, who had a great year. I personally don't know if he's going to be a bona fide number one long term, but he had a great year last year. Can he continue down the road he's been going? Who knows? Maybe he's your next Marty Brodeur. We don't know. But he's, at least for now, he's a very solid number one for them. And you've seen it in the past. Teams have to learn how to win before they can go deep in the playoffs. It always happens. The first step Toronto has made. They've gone to the playoffs. They've made the playoffs. That's the first step. Now the next step is win a round.
Yeah.
And when they do that, then it's win 2 rounds and so on.
Yep.
In 5 years, if this team goes down the path that they're headed, this is going to be the Washington Capitals of the East in 5 years. They're going to be loaded. They're going to be deep, perennial playoff contenders. Now, whether or not they'll win in the playoffs, it remains to be seen. I don't expect that they're going to struggle like Washington has, but there's a lot going on with the Leafs that have the fans in Toronto extremely excited about this team. And a lot of, and they're starved for a winning team. 1967. The Leaf fans all know it. That's the last time they won the cup, and it's been a long, long time. And I don't think it's going to happen this year, but they're on their way. They're definitely on their way.
I agree.
They're going to be a tough team to play against for years to come if they can keep this team together. All right, that is it for the Atlantic Division. Now let's do our standings prediction for the Atlantic Division, and I'll let you go ahead.
Okay, here's my predictions. I got the Tampa Bay Lightning finishing first. Right on their heels, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Number 3, Boston. Number 4, Montreal. Number 5, Ottawa. 6 is Detroit. 7, Florida. And 8, the Buffalo Sabres.
Very good. All right. Now, I'll preface my prediction with saying that if you remember last week, I definitely said, and I was firm, that 5 teams are going to come out of the Metro to make the playoffs.
Okay.
So that means only 3 are going to come out of the Atlantic. And the 3 that I have going to the playoffs this year is pretty much the same as last year, with the exception of Montreal. I've got Tampa Bay winning the division, just as you do. I've got Toronto second. I've got Ottawa third.
Okay.
And I've got Boston 4, Montreal 5. I can't have Montreal above Boston. I'm sorry. Florida 6, Detroit 7, Buffalo 8.
That's good. And I could see Florida jumping up there. I don't know. There's some teams that you just don't know, but that you got to go with what you're feeling at the time, I think.
This day and age, these standings prediction is total crapshoot. We don't know what's going to happen from 1 year to the next. In fact, we weren't even close to being right last year. We probably won't be close to being right this year. But it's fun to just take a shot at it and guess.
It is.
And then if we are right, we can go back and say, I told you so. I told you so.
Yeah. That's right.
I
think we are going to be right with a healthy Tampa Bay and Toronto. I think we are going to be right with those 2 teams.
Yeah, I think so. All right, let's move on to our minor league hockey minute. Yeah. And you've got a story out of the KHL.
I do, and I want to get it out of the way real quick because I like your the stories you have, and so I'm going to say mine real quick. In the KHL right now, once again, the lack of parity in that hockey league is rearing its ugly head. You would think I would if you're followers of the KHL, that I would come on this week and talk about SKA St. Petersburg, who is off to a 16-0 start to start their season. Now, that's like Columbus of last year. They're virtually a lock to make the playoffs, but I'm not going to talk about them. I'm going to talk about one of the worst teams in the KHL, and that is Dinamo Riga. Dinamo Riga, and I think Riga is the capital of Latvia. That's where this team is. I have not talked about them before, but they did play my favorite team, Vladivostok, 2 nights ago and got their butts kicked 5-2. And that was their 12th straight loss. They are now 0-12 to start the season.
Ouch.
So you have the extremes of the really good teams and then the extremes of the teams that and Vladivostok is not having a good year themselves. So the story goes, Dynamo's search for a win continues. Dynamo Riga 2, Vladivostok 5. It was a case of too little, too late, as Dynamo slipped, to its 12th consecutive defeat. This loss against the Admiral team struggling at the wrong end of the Eastern Conference table was confirmed in the first two periods, even though a late rally added a little respectability to the scoreline. First period tallies from Vadim, and this is this guy's name again, Krasnoslobatsev, and Robert Saborik.
Well, you do good with those Russian names. I should have you read them.
Krasnoslobatsev and Robert Saborik. It was a hard one. Robert Saborik set Admiral on its way to its fourth win of the season. The rally part of the middle, the early part of the middle session was disrupted by a flurry of penalties before Vladimir Batusov added a third for the visitors in the 38th minute. And they went on to win the game 5-2. And Viktor Kachov, remember that name, Viktor Kachov, he did score again in this contest near the end of the game. That's a guy who we will be talking about if he stays healthy in the Olympics coming up in February. He plays for the Vladivostok team, and he is probably the best player in the East, one of the best players in the Eastern Conference. For the Russian, it will be the Russian team. So that's all I had, Wayne. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, I got a bunch of little stories. First and foremost, all of the minor professional hockey leagues around the North American continent are getting going. A lot of the European leagues are already going. But the American Hockey League, the ECHL, and the lower level leagues like the Southern Pro Hockey League, the Federal League, all those leagues are getting going here very shortly. And pretty much what happens is, as the NHL teams pare down their rosters, they get sent down the American League. They got to pare down their rosters. They get, those players get sent down the ECHL. Anyway, so the AHL preseason is actually officially underway, and opening night for the American Hockey League is October 6th. And the American Hockey League preseason is only 1 to 3 games. It's very, very short. Mm-hmm. The ECHL, again, has a very short preseason. They haven't started yet, but their preseason is just from the 5th through the 9th of October, and the regular season starts on the 13th. The Southern Pro Hockey League, which I'm mentioning because we have a team here locally, the Fayetteville Fire Ants. They're a local team not far from here. Their regular season starts on the 20th of October. And also the Federal League gets started right about that same time. I don't have that. That's a new startup pro league. I followed that league a little bit last year because one of the rinks I grew up playing, the Forum in Berlin, New Hampshire, played a lot of games as a kid in that building. They actually had a team in that Federal League, but they have since disbanded. They ended last season, and they decided that because the Federal League is expanding, it was, when it first started, just a group of 6 or so teams in the Northeast. So they were traveling by bus. Now the league is expanded. There's actually going to be a team out of Winston-Salem in the Federal League starting this season. So the Federal League is expanding its footprint, which means teams and players are going to have to fly from game to game. And if you know anything about the northern New Hampshire area surrounding Berlin, there just simply is not a lot of airports up in that part of the country. So they would have to drive by bus if they're flying on commercial jets anyway, or that size of a jet. There's a small airport near Whitefield, New Hampshire, that they could fly out, but it can only handle Lear jets and very, very small prop planes. They can't handle big jets. So they would have to go down either to Portland, Maine, or Manchester, which is 2+ hours by car, and then fly out from there. So that, combined with struggling financial. They just weren't getting a lot of interest from local businesses, which is understandable because Berlin, New Hampshire was a paper mill town, and the mill is no longer there, and the town itself is struggling financially. So that team has disbanded. But for those of you who are hockey players and think that you're good enough to play professionally, and I know there's plenty in the beer league that I play in of players that, every beer league's got those guys that still think that they're scouts in the stands, and they play every game like it's a Stanley Cup final, and they have no regard for their personal safety or their opponent's personal safety. If you played beer league hockey, you know that guy in your league, and everybody loves to hate him. They're good players, and everybody doesn't like playing against them because they can at times be dangerous for recreational. They just play, and they play rough, and they play intense, and they play like they're playing in front of scouts. Well, I've got news for those players. There is a team in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, in the Federal League that is going to be holding an open tryout on Wednesday, October 18th at the Winston-Salem Fairgrounds Annex, located at 414 Deacon Boulevard in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. The camp will feature an ice session on Wednesday at 7 p.m., 2 more ice sessions on Thursday at 11 a.m. and 7 p.m., and 1 Friday at 11 a.m. Immediately following the Friday morning skate, the coaching staff will select 28 players and 4 goaltenders who will advance to the next step. The advancing skaters will continue onto the team's training camp on Friday, October 20th at 7 p.m. and Saturday, October 21st at 12 and 7 p.m. Saturday night will feature an inter-squad game. Players who are interested must sign up, and the cost of the camp is $95. All players must report to the arena by 4 p.m. on October 18th. We have arranged a rate at our host hotel, the Winston-Salem Hotel and Spa, for just $70 a night. Several meals will also be provided during the camp. The camp is limited, and players are encouraged to sign up early by contacting the Director of Hockey Operations, Andre Najek. It's NJEC is his last name. I'm not sure how you say it. Jake?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. At info@carolinathunderbirds.com. Again, the email address, info@carolinathunderbirds.com. Any player attending the camp must also provide proof of insurance. So, to all you beer leaguers out there who still think you got a shot at playing professional hockey, there is a team that would like to hear from you.
Yes, that's right. And boy, let me tell you that. Yeah.
I'm almost tempted to go watch this thing. It's even closer to you, but it's about an hour and a half drive from my house.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on with me that week, but we'll have to see. But the Carolina Thunderbirds, I want to say they were part of the ECHL, but they were definitely, I believe they were part of the ECHL, and they're resurrecting that old team now in the Federal League, and I'm kind of excited to see how they do. I've never seen a hockey game in the Lawrence Joel Coliseum, which is where they will be playing.
Yep.
They used to play at the old Winston-Salem Memorial Coliseum, which they've torn down now. But that building that they're playing in now is relatively new, 10, maybe 12 years old. I don't know.
Yep.
But it should be it should be really interesting. And my goodness, you get ticket to that game, and $10, you're in the door.
Yep.
So.
And as a player, you won't get paid much. But hey, if you want to continue to get, if you want to be able to call yourself a professional ice hockey player and say that you are a pro hockey player, here's your shot.
Yep.
Come on down to Winston-Salem. And I would even say, if you're a listener of this show and you decide you want to come down, I don't know about you, Steve, but I would even be willing to put you up at my house. just for the interest to see.
Yeah, I'd have to ask my wife first, Wayne.
I doubt any of our listeners are actually going to come down and try out, but it'll be it's kind of interesting to see this day and age where you can have an open tryout and you can go ahead and try to make the team if you think you got the chops for it.
Yeah. That's good.
All right. Oh, and the last thing. All right. That was pretty much it on our minor league hockey minute. Let's go ahead and move on to our picks of the week.
Okay. Real quick, let me get mine done first because yours is once again a good one. Reading the NHL.com articles, there were several good stories this week, and it was hard for me to pick. But my pick, once again, this was really cool, Wayne. The Vegas Golden Knights season ticket holders have their names embedded on the home ice at T-Mobile Arena. That is such a great idea. I don't know who thought of that, but that's a great way to honor the fans. And for the entire inaugural season, their names are embedded in the ice. It's already been put on the ice. I think it was Tuesday night of this week. They unveiled that, and it will, if I understood the article correctly, it will be there for the entire season. And the article goes, Vegas shows appreciation for fan base in a very unique way. Now, that's a cool honor. Fans who bought season tickets for the inaugural season of the Vegas Golden Knights had their names embedded in the ice at T-Mobile Arena. They will be visible for all to see starting Tuesday night, this past Tuesday, which I believe, what's that, the 27th, 26th? Mm-hmm. When Vegas plays its first home preseason game against the LA Kings. The names were printed on a long paper mat laid in the neutral zone in the end of the Golden Knights defend twice area, and then frozen into the playing surface. They are laid out in four rows from board to board. The first regular season home game will be against the Arizona Coyotes on October 10th. And if at all you have the sports package, NHL Center Ice, or you are part of the NHL.tv, and you can get the live streams of the game, that's something you may want to tune in, is the opening night game of the Arizona Coyotes and the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Watch that game. I'm sure that'll be part of it to show the fan appreciation that night. But that'll be a lot of fun, too, to see the brand new team that the NHL will have out on the ice.
Yeah, that was it. I saw that story. That was very, very cool. And I understood it as that they were going to cover up the names once they were still going to keep them in there, but just paint them white over once the regular season starts. I could be wrong on that, but
yeah.
But they left it visible for that first home game, and it's very, very cool gesture by the team to honor the essentially the first group of season ticket holders.
Yeah.
For the Golden Knights. Very, very, very cool. And they're always doing new and innovative things, around the league. But and I don't know if you've had a chance to follow their Twitter feed, but Vegas Golden Knights Twitter feed is very entertaining, particularly during games. I don't know who they've got running their Twitter feed, but it's incredible. They're funny and basically treating it like it is. They're not taking themselves too seriously, and they're just having fun with it, really.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my pick of the week is, it's going to be the first, and starting next week, we're going to have our NCAA Hockey Minute is going to come back. So I'm announcing, of course, that college is now going to be, their season gets underway tomorrow night. I think there's only one game tomorrow night, and it's one of the Alaska teams that's going to be playing against I think a Division III school. I don't have it right in front of me, but and then almost every team in the country is playing Saturday or Sunday. And most of the games are exhibition games this first time of the season. I know the University of Maine's first game is at 4 p.m. on the 1st of October. And they're playing Acadia, which is a college out of New Brunswick. And, of course, anytime you play teams that are not in NCAA Division I, those games don't officially count towards your standing. So it's kind of a warm-up game. And almost every team that's playing this weekend is playing a warm-up game style like that against either a Division III opponent or a college from Canada, that kind of stuff. But yeah, college season is underway, or it's getting underway this weekend. So that was really my pick of the week. The preseason rankings are out for Division I men's college hockey. And as I pull them up here, all right, we've got our preseason rankings. And at number 10, they have Penn State. At number 9, they've got St. Cloud State. Number 8, Notre Dame. Number 7, North Dakota. Number 6, Minnesota Duluth, and they got one first-place vote. Number 5, UMass Lowell. Number 4, Harvard, and they also got a first-place vote. Minnesota's number 3, Boston University's number 2, and number 1 with 48 first-place votes is Denver, and I guess they decided until they lose it, they're going to keep them right there.
Yeah.
Even though they lost some pretty decent players, looks like Denver has retooled and is going to be very strong once again. Now, generally what happens with the preseason poll is it does look very much like the previous season's poll at the end of the season, and they'll move teams up or down slightly based on any freshmen coming in that are highly touted or are expected to be high round draft picks. That kind of stuff may swing the poll one way or the other, but this poll is going to vary wildly in probably the first month of the season as teams start to take their place in the standings. But anyway, that's the preseason poll for NCAA college hockey, and starting next week we will have our NCAA college hockey minute in addition to all the other minutes that we're doing.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting, Wayne, the college hockey. That was very good.
Yep. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap things up. Again, our next scheduled live stream will be tentatively Wednesday, October 4th. And that happens to be opening night of the NHL season. A reminder, the Fantasy Hockey League that goes with this, our draft is on the 1st, this Sunday. So we've got that coming up. And and now that we've previewed all 31 teams, next week we'll make our picks for who will win the divisions, playoff rounds, and then ultimately the Stanley Cup. And then, of course, if we have time, we'll even throw a few picks out there for individual awards. Plus, we'll have our normal weekly coverage, of course, of all the news that has happened around the world. But in the meantime, I also want to hear from you, the listener. I want to hear, I'm going to ask a question. We should do this more than we have in the past, is try to get some feedback from the listeners, because it's pretty quiet with this podcast. I want to know from our listeners what you would like us to cover. If you would like more college hockey coverage, more KHL coverage, more American Hockey League coverage, less coverage, I want to know your thoughts on what direction you want to take the podcast, because obviously we do this for the listeners. I'd like to get some feedback as to if there's something you'd like us to cover more or less. I want to hear from you. So email us at why it's escaping me, feedback at thehockeynuts.com. And if you have an opinion one way or another on it, if you'd like us to change something, we're all ears. We welcome definitely feedback. So get in touch with us and let us know how you'd like us to see the show changed to make it better. Okay?
You're good. Yes, sir.
All right, let's go ahead and lock things up. Again, you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Google Play, MusicPlayer.fm, basically any of those podcast apps. You can find us on Android and Apple apps that do podcasts. You can listen to the show right on our website at thehockeynuts.com. You can also listen to our show on the hockeywriters.com website, which is a great resource for all kinds of hockey news and reviews and opinions. You can also get in touch with us at feedback@thehockeynuts.com. Tweet us at WayneHalley9 or at SBall504man. You can reach us through our YouTube channel at facebook.com/YouTube. I'm sorry, Facebook, thehockeynuts.com YouTube, and then our Facebook page at facebook.com/thehockeynuts. Getting those two confused. All right. So unless you have anything else, we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
No, I think that's it, Wayne. Great to work with you again.
All right. Well, until next week, we will see you out there.
Have a good week.
All right. You too. All right.
We did it.
Done. We made it through without another interruption.
Yeah. And I got to get this CBS Sports thing out to you right now.
I've been really annoyed by this whole thing.
What's that?
I've been really annoyed by this connection. It's been doing it all day.
Oh, I got to create a login ID.
Yeah.
And do you use your Gmail address?
That's what I used, yeah.
Okay. And then come up with a password, okay.